Good day po, teacher. Today we're discussing about the global migration. Firstly, migrants. Migrants is international migration defined by the UN as individuals living temporarily or permanently in a native country with significant social ties reached 232 million in 2013, representing 3.2% of the global population. While Europe and Asia has the largest numbers of migrants, the US has the highest migrant population, with the US-Mexico corridor being the primary route. Migration is influenced by push factors such as unemployment and conflict, and pull factors like favorable policies and better economic opportunities. Migrant types include temporary labor migrants, regular migrants, highly skilled migrants, whose departure can cause brain drain, forced migrants such as Syrian refugees fleeing the civil war to seek safety in Europe, family reunification migrants, and return migrants. Next. International migration includes in migration, return migration, out migration of nationals, and out migration of foreigners. Trafficking migration is difficult due to data collection issues and varying definitions across countries. Unlike trade and finance, migration, especially labor migration, faces restrictions except within the EU. Nations restrict migration to retain needed labor and avoid conflicts between newcomers and long-term residents. Terrorism concerns have further increased migration restrictions impacting business travelers, students, and tourists. A mobility regime aims to contain migrant movement driven by security fears. While barriers have reduced within the EU and for some under NAFTA, they remain significant. The rise of nation states led to increased migration control, contrasting with the relative freedom of movement before the World War I. Despite restrictions, regular immigration and people smuggling have increased, supported by local remittances and technology. Selective barrier reductions exist through guest worker programs addressing labor shortage and aging population. Next is about the flow of migrants and from the Mexico. It says here that economic factors drive substantial Mexican migration to the US, with the many entering without authorization to seek better wages and opportunities, despite facing challenges like economic marginalization, family separation, and constant threat of deportation by La Migra. Many find life in the US preferable to conditions in Mexico. Even if it means living in the shadows, stricter borders control have not deterred migration but have increased the risk and cost of crossing, leading to greater reliance on smugglers and more dangerous journeys. Return migrants often struggle with poor living conditions, low wages, and a lack of opportunities in Mexico, leading some desire a return to the US. The flow is further complicated by financial obligations to the family in Mexico and the social isolation experienced due to immigration status. So migrants through Mexico and to the US. In addition to Mexican migrants, many individuals from Central American nations, numbering over 2 million as of 2011, also migrate to the US. The majority come from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Their journey involves traveling through Mexico, often starting by crossing the Suchuy River from the Guatemala and undertaking 1,500 mile trip to the US border. A dangerous part of the journey includes a 250-mile walk into Aragua, where they board moving trains, often resulting in injuries to death. Migrants also face threats from corrupt police and robbers who steal their positions. Despite these dangers, they are driven by the hope of higher pay and better opportunities. In the US, illustrated by the story of Michelle Mia, who knows how to escape the hopelessness of his economic situation in Honduras. Increased law enforcement. Migration from Mexico, once a primarily temporary labor, is increasingly becoming a one-way settlement in the U.S. due to stable jobs, movement deeper in the U.S., and tightened borders control since the 1980s. Increased border enforcement has led to a decrease in return migration, with more undocumented immigrants remaining in the U.S. and potentially bringing family members. Border controls have increased, with more agents, fencing, and surveillance technology costing billions of dollars. While this had led to a drop in apprehensions, other factors like economic conditions also play a role. Proposals to make citizenship harder and more expensive reflect a tougher stance on immigration. Increased enforcement impacts in various sectors, including farming, and raises concerns about labor exploitation and human rights. Returning undocumented immigrants. Increased restrictions on undocumented immigrants in the US are causing some to return to their home countries. For example, hundreds of thousands of Brazilians who came to the US on tourist visas and remain undocumented immigrants are returning to Brazil. This due to fears of deportation, declining economic opportunities, especially after the Great Recession, loss of homes, stricter rulers on driver's license, lack of public transportation, the declining dollar, and improving prospects in Brazil. Many are discouraged by the lack of path to legal status in the US, while some wish they could stay. The fear of deportation drives them to leave, even though their American-born children may be reluctant to go and face potential resentment for being dead. This is the flow of migrants elsewhere in the world. It is not only in the US that controls over the borders is a major issue. So here's migrants in Europe. Since the Maastricht Treaty, the EU has expanded to include less developed Eastern European nations, leading to increased migration from east to west. While the treaty aimed to create a borderless society within the members of nations, the influx of immigrants has caused issues in Western Europe. This has resulted in growing concerns about the unauthorized immigration and increased efforts to reduce the flow of undocumented immigrants, similar to the situation in the US. Next is the Great Britain. In Great Britain, the free movement of workers from Eastern Europe following the admission of new members to the EU has sparked public debate. The influx of immigrants, particularly from Poland, taking low-paying jobs has led to concerns about job displacement and wage depression. For British workers, these fears have resurfaced with the admission of Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia, and potentially Turkey, while some argue that low-wage immigrants benefit the British economy by making products more competitive, feeling undesirable, and paying taxes. Others support stricter immigration rules. In 2013, Prime Minister David Cameron sought to deport foreign criminals, penalize employers hiring unauthorized immigrants, and require landlords to check tenants' citizenship status, reflecting a desire to curb immigration further. Sweden. Sweden, long known for its tolerance and welcoming attitude towards immigrants, particularly refugees, is experiencing a swift and sentiment. While immigrants have contributed in the workforce and benefited from Sweden's welfare system, the foreign-born population has grown to about 17%. High unemployment rates among immigrants have fueled a a backlash and increase the social conflicts. This is evidenced by the rise of an anti-immigration political party, racist attacks, and immigrant riots, signaling a change from Sweden's historically welcoming atmosphere. Next is Greece. So EU countries use Frontex police their borders, but undocumented immigrants still travel dangerous routes to reach Europe, particularly through Greece from Turkey. This influx has strained the risk, leading to a backlog of asylum seekers and criticism from the EU. Despite the dangers it causes, migrants from various countries seek entry, making Greece the backdoor to the EU. Greece has responded by detaining and deporting undocumented immigrants and building a fence on its border with Turkey. The situation is dire for many, even those with legitimate asylum claims, and some migrants wish to return home after facing harsh conditions. While there is some evidence of a decline in undocumented immigration, it is uncertain if this trend will continue due to ongoing issues in Africa, such as war, poverty, and conflict. Undocumented immigrants in Asia. Undocumented immigration is a global issue not limited to the EU and to the US. In Malaysia, a significant portion of workforce is foreign-born, with over a million being undocumented. These immigrants face harassment, arrest, and deportation. The Darila Strike Force targets undocumented immigrants, leading to accusation of abuse, similarly in Central Asia. Many people migrate from countries like Uzbekistan and Tajikistan to Kazakhstan and Russia for work. Despite facing poor treatment and anti-immigrant sentiment, they continue to come due to poor economic conditions at home. While there are potential gains like remittance, there are also rise in ethnic tensions. Violence, increased hard control has led to a rise in smuggling of undocumented immigrants. Next is the case against the backlash to undocumented immigration. Arguments against restricting immigrations highlighted the benefits for both the South and the North. The South gains remittance, new skills, and ideas brought by returning immigrants. The North benefits from youthful workers filling essential jobs, increased flexibility, and protection against inflation. Immigrants also contribute as consumers and diversity to the host country. Fears in the North stem from politicians exploiting anti-immigrant sentiment, cultural integration challenges, job competition for less skilled workers, and concerns about welfare systems. However, research suggests that immigrants boost the overall standard of living, may not compete with natives for jobs, and contribute through taxes. Jonathan Moses argues for fair immigration based on economic, political, and moral dimensions. Economically, immigration has positive effect, with immigration raising living standards, filling needed labor gaps, and contributing to public finances. Politically, freer immigration promotes democratization and responsiveness from nation states. Morally free mobility is basic human rights and means to achieve economic and political justice, reducing global inequality and tyranny. Moses challenges conventional wisdom, arguing that freer migration will lead to greater global cooperation and improve tracking of criminal and terrorists. And lastly, remittance. Remittance money sent by migrants to their home countries have become increasingly important. Two developed nations estimated at 410 billion in 2013 and projected to grow significantly. They are facilitated thriving businesses that handle transfers, often using the internet. Remittances can constitute a substantial proportion of a country in GNP, and more are most likely to go India, China, the Philippines, and Mexico. Remittances offers numerous benefits, including reducing poverty, providing direct assistance, helping with emergencies, raising educational levels, and serving as a counter-cyclical force. They are also seen as favorable to foreign aid due to their predictability and reduced corruption. However, remittances also drawbacks. They can lead to a drain of skilled workers from home countries, may not translate into economic growth, can make recipients targets of crime, and may support dubious regimes. The cost of sending remittances can be high, and they are not cured for poverty. Migration can also lead to broken families and abuse. The poorest nations and people are not always the greatest recipients. Increased barriers to immigration, especially from the US to Mexico, have affected remittances, leading into a declining after 2008 due to border restrictions, lower economic growth, and drop in American housing construction. This decline has more hurt many communities in Mexico.
Diaspora refers to the diaspora of religious, ethnic, racial, or national groups beyond their original homeland. It involves a collective memory, alienation from the host country, and a desire to return. Globalization has increased diasporas, with technology creating virtual diasporas. The Lebanese diaspora exemplifies this, maintaining strong ties and supporting their homeland through remittance. Immigrants as entrepreneurs in the U.S. Despite challenges, migrants' life in the U.S. study offers entrepreneurial opportunities. Immigrants are more likely to own business and start new ones compared to the native-born population. They are injecting entrepreneurialism and ethnic diversity into American culture, extending beyond large cities to suburbs and smaller cities. Golden Cross Caribbean Bakery, founded by a Jamaican immigrant, exemplifies this spread. While undocumented immigrants face difficulties in creating businesses, they often benefit from them. Successful migrants may transition into tourism. Brain drain. The global flow of people involves the movements of intellectual capacity and ability. The brain drain refers to the loss of highly skilled migrants in their intellectual capital, which can negatively affect the locale, losing its best educated people. The brain drain has a long history, affecting nation states in various ways, and the direction of these flows can vary over time, being primarily outward or inward, though almost always bidirectional. Israel faces a growing brain drain, particularly among academics and scientists, due to factors like instability, low wages, and high taxes. This immigration, highlighted by the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, has seen many leave Israeli universities for opportunities abroad, especially in the US. Japan faces a brain drain as engineers and skilled workers move to countries like Taiwan, South Korea, and China for better job opportunities. This is driven by Japan's economic decline and the growth of neighboring economies. While these countries benefit, Japan worries about losing talent, expertise, and economic competitive. The South. The global South faces a significant brain drain, hindering development as skilled individuals immigrate. Countries like South Africa and Senegal lose many college graduates and doctors, impacting healthcare Higher wages abroad attract educated workers, while poor conditions at home push them away. Questioning the brain drain. While the brain drain is a concern, brain drain benefits wealthier countries like the US, which attracts skilled workers with higher pay. Brain circulation allows nations like Taiwan to regain talent with enhanced knowledge. Immigration can also benefit home countries through remittance and improve education. Preventing skilled individuals from migrating raises moral questions. Human trafficking, defined by the UN, is the forced movement of people for exploitation. International trafficking has risen since 2000, affecting both developed and developing countries. Women and girls are the main victims, organized through global networks and driven by profit. It involves sex and labor trafficking. Sex trafficking forces people into sexual slavery with victims, earning going to pimps. Victims are often kidnapped or lured with false job offers, especially in areas with high unemployment. Traffickers use violence, threats, and debt to control victims who face terrible conditions and high rates of STIs. Labor trafficking exploits workers in slavery like conditions. Victims, often from the global south, are moved to the global north. Common forms include domestic labor in affluent countries and exploitation by foreign diplomats, who use special visas to subject workers to abuse and denial of basic rights. Diplomatic immunity complicates legal recourse for victims. Tourism, boosted by jets and budget airlines, has become more global, though it's still mainly for elites. Globalization has increased interest and access to remote locations. Affordable transport and tours have made distant places accessible to tourists. Specialized forms of tourism. Ecotourism seeks to minimize harm while allowing tourists to experience nature, but success can increase tourist numbers, causing damage. Ethnotourism focuses on experiencing cultures, while adventure tourism involves remote, adventurous trips. Niche tourism caters to interests like sex, food, wine, and war. Adverse effects of tourism. Global tourism boosts revenue and jobs but has downsides. While some destinations minimize damage, others faces challenges. Angkor Wat, for example, gains income from tourism but suffers damage to its templates. Despite preservation needs, increased tourism is encouraged, raising concerns it's becoming a cultural Disneyland. Thank you for listening.